Okay, hi everyone. I'm Julie Miller, and I am here tonight with Patrick Henry. This is a meet and greet for him. He is running for Texas House of Representatives, District 25. So welcome to everyone that's able to make it, all of you who are watching at home as well. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to get started by talking about why Patrick Henry is so great. I've been working on his campaign, and he is a great candidate. We're so excited in HD 25 to actually have a choice of candidates, which is something that we haven't had in a long time. But one of the reasons that I'm helping work on Patrick's campaign is because I actually had the privilege of teaching with Patrick, and it was a lot of fun. He did a lot of stuff for his students. His students really loved him, and he was just a really great teacher. And I really enjoyed working with him and seeing how much he cared about his students, and how involved in the community he was. He's really knowledgeable about a lot of things. And I am happy to work for his campaign, but I'm also happy to vote for him as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Patrick. So Patrick, you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Julie Todd, Stephanie Towns, and especially my wife, Kathy Henry. I think either of the three would make a better candidate than me. And they've worked very hard and put a lot of faith in me. And I hope I can earn that. And I hope that I can earn the faith of all the people who have helped me, made donations, made phone calls, and worked so that there's a voice and a choice for Matagorda and Southern Brazoria County in HD 25. I don't think there has been. There hasn't been a Democrat run since 2004. I felt called to do this. I know at first I went, I'm too old. I'm too white. I'm not female. I'm not the best speaker in the world, but I am the one that's here. So hopefully I can earn your trust and your vote also. In House District 25, before COVID, 18% of the people over 22 do not have a high school diploma. 22% of the families live under a $25,000 poverty line. And 60 to 70% of our students are economically disadvantaged. We have a huge petrochemical industry. We have a huge oil pipe production facility in Bay City. So we do have jobs for some people, but for a lot of people, they lack the education and the training. And that's one of the things that I want to stress as an elected official to the state representative, to the state house, that the education and the training are very important and that we need to work on those and continue with them. I don't feel that these people have had a voice. I don't feel that the person who's struggling to hang on to the middle class by their fingertips has had a voice. I don't feel that the person who's working 2 minimum wage or 3 minimum wage jobs to get by has had a voice. And COVID-19 has made all of these things more dire. So I think you need someone. I'm a lifelong teacher, as Julie said. She worked with me with adults who are a joy to work with. I worked in special education in a high school where the students struggled. They weren't happy to be there. And you had to really work with them to try and get them to move and make progress. Too many of them ended up in prison, that school to prison pipeline. I'll get to the issues in a minute. I've got a bunch of them. But mostly I'm running to represent people, small businesses, and I can talk to everybody from the barnyard to the boardroom. So I'll go ahead and let you ask me some questions.
Okay. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask Patrick, you can type them in the chat over on the side and ask those questions there. Does anyone have any questions? Let me see if we see any. Yeah.
So what are the key issues in this race?
Issues?
Yeah.
I've got a laundry list. I think the main issue is going to be decided by the comptroller, Mr. Hagar, on how much money we have, and that it's going to be a battle to maintain and keep the progress that we've made. One of my main issues is that the gains we made for our students and teachers in House Bill 3, those were only funded for the biennium. I don't want there to be cuts in those improvements. I don't want there to be cuts in pre-K programs. I don't want there to be cuts in improvements to teacher pay. I don't want there to be cuts in the things that people work so hard for. Another key issue with me is criminal justice reform. The Texas Black Democrats Fair Justice Act, the George Floyd Act. I was on a Zoom earlier and got to speak with Ron Reynolds, state representative. He's authored a lot of bills on criminal justice reform, and it'll be a pleasure to go work with him and get those things passed. So the top two are education and criminal justice reform, but there's a whole long list I have. Just today, it was brought up on the Texas Democrats with Disabilities Zoom that 80% of the people in prisons have some type of a disability. All these things tie together. They tie together in the fact that Texas is a work-to-right state, keeps the wages low, and the benefits non-existent. Shortchanging the school's funding leads to the prison or school-to-prison pipeline, dropouts, lack of training. For the privileged, Texas is a pretty good place to live. For those who aren't privileged, it can be pretty rough. In that George Floyd Act and the Fair Justice Act, the change to marijuana laws, I think they call for the legalization of it. I always forget, NRM, I think it's pronounced normal, but the marijuana reform people was interesting because their ideas are not as advanced. They want the small yardage. They want the small gains in marijuana reform, more decriminalization. So those things will come up, hopefully. Hopefully, this won't be another session that's dominated by some ridiculous asinine bathroom bill or some other piece of social legislation that the far-right Republicans push that does nothing for the people of Texas. Anything else on that, on issues? I can go on.
That covers it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. Hey, Patrick, my name is Jacinda. I'm president of the Young Democrats of Brazoria County. It's really nice taking a break and touring Brazoria County and getting to know you a little bit. And surprised, or it was cool hearing about your history, about your previous positions as city councilman and mayor of Angleton. So how how do the skills that you've learned within those positions, how will that translate over to you as a state rep for HE25?
Well, I was on city council I was a council member for 10 years, a mayor pro tem for 4.5, and mayor for 4.5. And when I talk about my service on council and what we accomplished, I always say we, not I. We built a police department, a city hall. We added on to the city hall. We built a rec center. We improved streets. We worked with the drainage district to almost eliminate flooding in Angleton. Had you been here in Harvey, I don't think we had more than 1 or 2 houses that flooded. We also worked to improve sewer lines so that when it did rain hard, there wasn't toilet paper floating down the streets. We prepared Angleton for the growth that it's seeing now. And I always say that the people who came before me, they did their part to get us to where we could do ours. So when I talk about my service on city council and as mayor, I don't stand on people's shoulders with golf spikes. And if you follow this campaign, you'll know what I'm talking about. But we balanced 20 budgets. We managed debt. We kept the tax rate as low as we could and still make progress for the city of Angleton. While I was mayor, I got to be mayor during Hurricane Ike. I don't know if you know how emergency situations work or not, but the mayor and the city manager then become the decision makers during the emergency. That meant that I made executive life and death decisions for the people of Angleton. Now, we weren't hit directly, but who to evacuate, how to evacuate, and when to evacuate were decisions that I made along with the city manager. And I got to write a check for $730,000 at 3 o'clock in the morning. I got a lot of Hurricane Ike stories, but the long and short of the answer to your question is, I know how state government should work. I know how the budgeting should work. I met Governor Richards, I met Governor Bush, I met Governor Perry. And those are also long stories. But my experience on council and governance has taught me how things ought to work, how to work with people with opinions that are not anywhere close to yours and find some common ground, how to listen to people, how to take them seriously, how sometimes when they're angry, what you have to do is let them talk until their anger cools and then try to solve their problem. So these are all things that I think my experience on city council has given me an edge. And that I can do a lot for the state of Texas and the people of House District 25 with that experience.
So I have a question. And I was wondering,
All right.
I've seen that your slogan is like, send a teacher to Austin. But why should we send a teacher to Austin?
Well, since all of you went to school and all of you had high school teachers, you've known that teacher that sinks their teeth into an issue and doesn't let go until the problem's solved. You may have had a teacher that sunk their teeth into you and hung on to you until you made the improvement that you needed. Sometimes you resent it until later, but most of the time it works out. Teachers are good researchers. Teachers are good planners. Teachers are great at executing plans. And when things don't go right, teachers are good at making the world hopeful enough to remember Gumby and Pokey. I think I saw maybe that's a new thing again. But another reason is education makes up a huge chunk of the state budget, $65 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars. You need somebody there who's not involved with special interests, but wants to make education in Texas the best it possibly can be. And not just K through 12, but higher ed too. You want someone who knows in the educational field what is good and beneficial and what is just crap that makes some lobbyists' company more money. We teachers are pretty tenacious, and I think that's a good quality. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
So
Lorenzo?
oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I think I'm representing the youth on this call. So yeah, just a quick question. As those in the younger generation get ready to potentially put themselves in an opportunity to be one of the largest voting blocks in America, just simple question. Why should young people vote for you?
You're muted, Patrick. If you don't mind unmuting yourself.
You're still muted.
This is a great question for.
No, man, I muted him with my voice.
It was that age. He was like, I ain't gonna even take this youngster question.
Try it again.
All right, can you hear me now? Why would it have muted me? I didn't.
We can hear you.
Okay. All right, so the youth question. Sorry about that technical difficulty. I blame it on Microsoft.
Oh. No.
Uh-oh. Just kidding, Joseph. I want a Surface Pro too. I say I didn't graduate from high school until 7 years ago when I retired from teaching high school after 34 years. So I was around young people for a long time. Kind of kept up on trends and issues. And I do understand and empathize with the youth of today. I have two millennial sons. My oldest millennial son had the good fortune to graduate the first year of the last recession from college, from UT. After 11 years, he and his partner finally have recovered enough that they bought their first house. And they're fortunate in that they were able to do that in 11 years. My youngest son was born in 1991, so he's still a millennial. He's a very brave young man. He's got a good job at Olin, but he and two of his friends are opening up a gym in Houston. Powerlifting, bodybuilding, physical fitness. He's a trainer. That'll be difficult for them too. I understand college debt and college costs. I understand the bleak outlook right now in our economy. I think that probably if you look at my opponent, who's 33, he's young. Right? My oldest son is 32. But he adheres to every far right Texas Republican platform agenda that there is. So if you're just looking at physicality and age, he's much younger. If you're looking at agendas, who we're going to serve and how we're going to serve them, I think maybe I have the younger attitude and I'm the one that you ought to vote for. You want to follow up on the youth question?
Yeah, I mean, I like the contrast between you're able to recognize that your opponent is younger, but you still can say that your policies represent a more younger, diverse generation. So if you don't mind, could you just explain more about like what are those policy differences? Like what do you feel the represents the youth?
Well, I think the youth are, especially this generation, much more open-minded on things like gay marriage and sexuality and gender. Trans lives matter, LGBTQ issues. My opponent is not a proponent of those. The environment, got to get that in there. This House District 25, I joke, I say I have almost every wildlife refuge on the coast so that the ducks and the geese and the shrimp and the crabs can all vote for me. But I do. And it's two ways. It's beautiful in its way if you're there at sunset and sunrise to see the seagrass. But also, it's an invaluable economic resource with the shrimping and the fishing and oystering. The environment's very important to young people, and it should be. We're seeing the havoc that global warming is wreaking, not 10 years from now, 20 years from now, but today. How many tropical storms are out there in the Gulf now in that hot water? 6, or not in the Gulf. I think there's only 1 in the Gulf. There's 6 coming. And hurricane season anywhere near over. The wildfires in the West, the drought, California, Oregon, Washington. I have friends in Albuquerque that are sending me pictures of the smoke that's coming to Albuquerque. I have a friend in Tucson that's showing the color of the sky and the smoke. That's a very important, a crucial issue to young people. You're going to be here in 50 years to find out if the global initiatives will work, if we can participate in them. In Texas, the climate issues are dire because of so much of us are at sea level, but also regulation on industries. I think up until, say, 2016 and some things that occurred there, that regulation on industries was improving in Texas and that our plants were trying to operate as cleanly as possible. Now, I'll stop here in a second. Out in West Texas, where we're flaring off gas, no, we're not doing a good job. There are ways that can be addressed too. But I'll get into minutia if I don't stop. So I'll stop there. Anything else you want to ask about issues for young people? Just don't make me try to explain what TikTok is. I don't get it.
That's fair. No, I'm fine for that. So thank you so much for your.
I can't. I can go on a long time. That's that teacher thing.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Hey, I have the last question for this evening. Thank you so much for doing this evening. So you've talked a lot about your opponent, his age. You've talked about some of the policies that the Republicans have that out there that he is sticking hold to. But the last question is, how do you from your opponent? And let's go outside of the age and let's go outside, outside of the party, but really, how do you guys differ?
Okay, well, I believe that women own their bodies and that their reproductive choices should be between them and their physicians. Let's see how else I differ. Oh, here's an important one. I don't believe in a theocracy. I don't believe in the idea of a Christian nation because I don't think a nation can be a Christian. I believe in the diversity that we have. I believe that a Muslim can be a congressman, that a Hindu can be a congressman, that the child of a Hindu can be a vice president, that anybody of any religion can participate in our government. One of the issues that came up that my opponent brought up, he brought up the issue that he returned prayer to city council. Well, his idea of prayer is a spoken Christian prayer. In 2002, when I was mayor pro tem, this issue came up, and we had quite a few conversations about it because there had never, ever been prayer in the history of the Angleton City Council. What we arrived at was the same thing they do in the schools, a moment of silence for reflection or prayer. That's anybody's prayer or no prayer. And no one who brought their business to the city had to be uncomfortable because of any type of prayer that does sit with their religion. How else am I different from my opponent? Oh, my opponent is an attorney for a huge firm in Houston. And while he comes across as this hometown boy who went to A&M, and he likes to say, howdy. My wife just snorted. I'm afraid that he's going to be a lobbyist for the big oil companies that his firm represents while he's a state legislator. I would hope not. My wife had Cody in class. We know his family. I would hope that he would live up to the things that his family expect. Back to the reproductive rights, and we'll just talk about abortion. I don't think anyone is in favor of abortion. We want it as an option. But Cody Vossoot doesn't think that people who are raped or victims of incest should be allowed an abortion. And I don't agree with that. Again, it's the Republican platform in Texas and those far, far right ideas. Another issue is property tax. I'd like to come up with some reasonable ways to reduce property tax, and most of your property tax is your school tax. One way would be to get the state to increase the average daily attendance funding per student so that school districts could lower the rate. Another way would be to not make it so that when your grows in property value, that the state lowers your funding, which causes the growing district to have to tax more to support those students. My opponent, he proposes a consumption tax or a sales tax, and he promises that that won't adversely affect those folks who are the least capable to pay. Well, I've heard that before. And we've heard for 20 years in Texas how the Republicans are going to lower our property taxes, and we're still waiting. I won't support any kind of property tax relief that instead of taking money out of your back pocket, takes it out of your front pocket, and instead of sharing the load for the payment of our schools in Texas, adversely affects those who are the least capable to pay. Let me stop there because we can't go on forever.
Hey, Patrick, I have one last question. I know William said he had the last question, but I can't. I mean, someone else has to have one more. I noticed on social media that you got an F rating from the NRA. But we live in deep red Texas, as you brought up several times. How do you really feel about guns, Patrick?
Well, I'm going to use that to segue into my Live at 5, where I'm going to talk about my F rating and the NRA. Because, and I'll just briefly, I'm not going to give away my Live at 5. You're going to have to tune in. But briefly, the NRA has done a horrible job representing the hundreds of millions of responsible gun owners. And I want to talk about that because I'm a gun owner. I'm kind of a gun nut, but I am not a fan of the NRA, not in the slightest. All right, I'm getting another cue here from my.
Tell them how to do live at 5.
Oh, how to do live. Oh, to do live at 5, you need to go to Patrick Henry at HD25 on Facebook. I also have a website, www.henryforhd25.com, which links to Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. All of my live at 5s are on YouTube. If you really are an insomniac, you can just start that and let it run. I think there's about 15 now. I don't even remember all the things we've covered. I've covered guns once before, but I'm going to talk about the NRA F rating at 5.
Okay, thank you for that, Patrick. Also, if anyone wants to volunteer for your campaign or donate money, can you tell them what your website is?
My website's www.henryforhd25.com. I am on ActBlue. That's the easiest way to donate. I think my mailing address is on the website. If George Soros wants to mail me that big check, I'm still waiting. I'm not sure where else the my address might be, but you can message me off of Facebook and I'll get back to you. You can send me an email from the website. I'll get back to you. I've got one waiting for me now. So that's how you can get a hold of me. We'd love to have more volunteers. The phone banking is tremendous. I want to thank the Young Democrats for that and my volunteers who are phone banking. We have folks writing postcards. We're hanging lit on doors. We can't knock and talk, but we can leave the literature and move on. And we're working on that. Again, 60% of the people in House District 25 don't vote, the registered voters. I feel like they haven't had an opportunity to vote. Our reason. I feel like they think nothing matters, nothing changes. I want to be that change. I want you guys to help me get that 60% of the people out to vote. I want to shake up this regime in Brazoria County, this group of families. And I also want to pay a whole lot of attention to Matagorda County. I'm not sure my opponent has been there. Maybe he has. Maybe he's been to Bay City. But I've been to Matagorda, I've been to Palacios, I've been to Bay City multiple times, and I'm going again. In fact, if you want to join us in Matagorda next weekend, we're going to do lit drops on Friday and Saturday, or no, not Matagorda, sorry, Palacios. If you want to join us in Palacios and do a lit drop, I'll boil shrimp for you. We'll be at the Camp Serendipity Campground in our mobile command post.
Okay, and that'll be on September
cover it, Julie?
26th. Yeah, September 19th, which is actually next Saturday, we will be in Brazoria.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But
Yeah.
in September 26th, you'll be in Palacios doing a lit drop and boiling shrimp for people if they come help.
That's right.
Right? Okay.
And there are a lot of votes there. There are a lot of Democrats in Matagorda County that haven't been reached. So we need to do that. A lot of people think that this is Dennis Bonin's territory. This is Republican territory. But it wasn't always that way, and it doesn't have to be again. We can turn blue just like you folks up there in the north end of the county, just like you folks in Houston.
Okay, great. Thank you, Patrick. So we're going to let you go now so you can get ready for your live at 5. But thank you so much for meeting with us, answering our questions. And do you have any parting words for the folks out there?
This election is a matter of life and death, from the presidency on down to your local school board. We're in very turbulent times. We need to get together, try not to be so far apart on the left and right, and get some things done. I think I can do that. And I know we can do that. And I know we can turn Texas blue. So get your work shoes on, get out there and work, make those phone calls, do those lip drops for all the candidates up and down the ballot. And remind people there's no straight ticket voting. They're going to have to vote from the top of the ballot to the bottom of the ballot. And please look for Patrick Henry and make sure and vote for that one. I'd like to thank all of you that have helped me with this. Again, I started with thanking my 3 stalwart volunteers. I also need to thank Chris McGarvey and Karen Meyer, the Democratic chair and the Southern Brazoria County chair. They've been invaluable. They've been a support for me. This is a difficult thing to do, especially in HD 25, to run as a Democrat. And any time that I've lagged or been a little down, all these folks have helped pick me up. And again, I'm not sure I deserve it, but I'm going to work real hard to. So thank you again, and I'll leave with that. Have a good Sunday evening. And if you can get here probably around 6 o'clock, the chili will be ready.
Okay, thank you.